So I'm going to share, the benefits of a life in the presence of God. But that won't be enough. You have to experience these things for yourself so that they may become real and manifest in your life, that so that they may become a reality of your life. Because head knowledge is amazing, but knowledge by experience is more beautiful. So I'd like to encourage you, spend time with God. When you experience him, you will become a lover of his presence. um, David was a man that was a lover of the presence of God. And let me share a few things he said about the presence of God. He who dwells, this is Psalm 91, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. So you find rest in his presence. So we draw rest from his presence. In John 15, the word of God tells us about how he is the vine and we are the branches, and we can only bear fruit if we stay connected to him, if each branch stays connected to him. And he goes on to tell us that without him we can do nothing. So if you need rest in your life, you have to stay connected. And how do we stay connected? We have to pray, we have to fellowship, you have to have personal Bible study. So if you're a person of prayer, you can testify that there are times you start to pray and you've got lots of questions, but by the time you're done praying, you're filled with answers. Sometimes you may begin to pray or study the word, whatever it is that you're doing to cultivate your relationship with God in whatever form it may be. When you begin it, sometimes you're not feeling okay, everything gets sorted in his presence. The best days of my life, the best moments, the best mornings of my life have been mornings that have started my day with God. The best days of my life have been days I've spent in his presence. The best nights of my life have been the nights I've spent in his presence. You have to be intentional about cultivating a relationship with God, because you trust in the benefit. It's not something that you do and it does not bring forth fruit. Your prayers are fruitful, your prayers change things, your prayers cause rest to manifest in your life. He goes on to say, I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. This was a testimony of his experience. Verse 3 says, surely he will save you from the faller's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampant. This is really, he's testifying with such confidence. He's declaring, he is telling us that this is what his presence will do. And he could only get to this place because he had experienced God. There's people out there that are waiting to hear that testimony, that don't know the benefit of a life with God, and you have to experience it so you can be able to share with them with a confidence. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day. This is his sharing from his experience. He could not have told us these things if he had not experienced God as one that is one who is a covering. He had this, his testimony was that if you're with God, you can't fear terror of night. It's not like terror won't be there, but there's no need to fear, because God will God is your covering. He is your refuge. Once you're with him, regardless of what the circumstance is, it can't harm you, it can't bring you danger. He's a God of plans that prosper us and not to harm us. So if you're in his presence, the testimony David shares is that 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you make the Most High, if you decide, if you make up your mind, if you make the Most High your dwelling, even the Lord who is my refuge, if you make this same guy who is my refuge your if you make this same God who is my refuge, if you make him your dwelling place, if you stay connected to him, if you stay in him, then no harm will befall you, no disaster will come near your tent. These are benefits of the presence of life in the presence of God. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. So once you stay in the presence of God, if you dwell and abide in him, you have access to the ministry of the angelics. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because he loves me. There are those circumstances that will come at you that kill people. Literally take them out. They won't take you out. The same stuff that killed person X, when it meets you, you rise above it, simply because you're living in the company of God, simply because you're living in the company of refuge, simply because you're living under the shadow of his mighty covering. So he goes on to say that because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him, I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. To acknowledge the name of God is to acknowledge him as supreme over any situation, over any circumstance, is to acknowledge him as your source of strength, your source of refuge, your source of wisdom, your source of sufficiency, adequacy, to function in whatever it is that you've been placed on this earth to do. So he says that, if you acknowledge him, he has to be all these things to you. And how do we acknowledge God? You literally just have to have this mindset of God. There's no point me starting this day without you. We have to talk about it. We have to talk. I have to read my word. What are you saying about this day? You have to set. David said, still a man that was a lover of his presence. He said that I set the Lord always before me. I can't do anything without looking to him first. There's no point, because without him I fail. That is you acknowledging that, God, without you I can't. You are my source of strength. If you don't supply, then I have nothing. I'm empty. But if you supply, then I'm full. If you supply, I'm adequate. If you supply, I'm enough. You have to, that is acknowledging God. And he goes on to say, he will call upon me. The man that acknowledges me will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. That's the thing about life in his presence. It's not that it's a life without trouble, but you look different in trouble. Trouble won't drain you. Trouble won't have nothing on you. In fact, trouble will come just to prove your God, just so that people that watch can believe. They can be like, if she could overcome that, then that means if I trust the God that she trusts, I can overcome it too. Trouble will come just to prove, just to show forth the evidence of who God is. Who God is to you. Then it goes on to say that I will be with him in trouble, I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. So you won't even die young. Your life will be proof of his salvation, proof of his ability, proof of his faithfulness, because it told us that we've read that his faithfulness is our shield and buckler. Disease has manifested, but his word says that by his stripes we were healed. And because he is faithful to his word, that faithfulness guards us from disease. The manifestation has to be that disease disappeared. It came as an attack, but because I had faith in the God who is faithful to his word, his faithfulness guarded me from disease and guards me from every attack. That is life in the presence of God. You are guarded and protected from every attack, every scheme of the enemy. Psalm 16 verse 8 says, I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right side, I will not be the KJV says the KJV says that I have set the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. I love what the NIV says. It says that I keep my eyes always on the Lord. You know, to set your eyes always on the Lord is to keep your eyes always on him. Like, you have to be cautious of his presence, and that cautiousness of his presence can only come from a place of faith, you know, because we have faith in an invisible God. But his qualities, his effect is visible by what manifests in your life. You know, you have faith in an invisible God, but he has an effect that is visible. You know, people will see your life. Disease came, disease disappeared, because you kept your eyes on him. You had this confidence that as long as he's with me, I can't be taken out by any circumstance. I can't fear any circumstance. You know, I'm not looking to myself. I can't, but he can. You know, he tells me, for as long as you make me your refuge, I will come through. For as long as you set your eyes, you know, on me, for as long as you set me always before you, for as long as you keep your eyes on me, you will not be shaken by any circumstance, by any situation. You know, so lastly, let me share 2 Corinthians chapter 4 from verse 7. However, we possess this precious treasure, the divine light of the gospel, in frail human vessels of earth, that the grandeur and exceeding greatness of the power may be shown to be from God and not from ourselves. You know, we carry the presence of God within us. We are hedged in, pressed on every side, troubled and oppressed in every way, but not crumpled or crushed. You know, circumstances come, but they don't take us out. You know, we suffer embarrassments and are perplexed and unable to find a way out, but not driven to despair. You know, we are pushed over the edge, but we land safely. You know, we are pursued, persecuted, and hard driven, but not deserted to stand alone. You know, we always have a presence with us. God will never let you go through any situation on your own, for as long as you acknowledge him. Really, a life in his presence is a life of acknowledging him. The power of manifestation of his presence is in you acknowledging him for who he is. You know, we are pursued, persecuted, and hard driven, but not deserted to stand alone. He will never desert us in any situation. We are struck down to the ground, but never struck out or destroyed. You know, whatever blow, you know, we receive, because we live under his presence, because we dwell under the shadow of his wings. You know, we don't feel the blow. You know, that is, he takes the heat. You know, we walk through fire, we go through fire. It's not that fire doesn't exist, it's not that we don't go through the fire, but when we go through it, we aren't burned, because there's this guy who is shielding us from, you know, from the burn. So I want to encourage you, acknowledge God. The power is in your acknowledging. Acknowledge his presence. Be cautious of his presence. And this can only come from a place of faith. So let me read still 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 7 to 9. Let me read it in simpler English. We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves. You know, he's our muscle. We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed, only because we carry his presence. You know, we are perplexed but not driven to despair. We are hunted down but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be seen in our bodies. Like, for our lives are a cycle of, you know, no matter how bad it is, we always come out stronger, we always come out great.